Hi, welcome to the Morton Marketing Assassins podcast. We created this because many people struggle with internet marketing and attracting new leads and clients on the internet. And a lot of people out there are saying it's easy, hire me. But the truth is, it's not easy. There's a lot of people out there filling the internet with a lot of misinformation. So we hope to give you the real deal on what it takes to be successful in growing your business on the internet. Hi, welcome to episode 1. I've been challenged to create this thing, so consider it created. So the person I had a bet with, you lost. See, I did it. Episode 1. Anyway, if we're going to do these episodes, why not make them useful? So I decided to start with the hero's journey, and here's why. One of the things that is critical to being, to really create any kind of conversion is to get somebody to know, like, and trust you. Now, right now, if you don't know who I am, chances are you don't know me, you probably don't like me, and for sure you don't trust me. Now, why don't I like me if I'm listening to myself for the first time? First of all, I hate the sound of my own voice. Have you ever listened to your own voice and you're just like, ugh? So I hate my voice. So I apologize in advance for the sound of my voice for this entire episode. I kind of blame my parents. I think it was genetically given to me. So anyway, the hero's journey is a very powerful process. It's a super powerful formula for telling stories. And I can tell you this, that most movies that make any money follow this format. So if once I give you the format, you can start to watch for it in movies and you'll see it every time, okay? So basically, the part 1, it's made up of 4 parts, and within those 4 parts, there are 3 sub-parts in each part. So part 1, that section, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my screen, is the call to adventure. And that exists of 3 parts, which is the ordinary world, the call to adventure, and the refusal. There's always the reluctant hero, I didn't want to be Superman, but I just saw problems and I had to put on the cape and help people, Every story almost has the refusal of the hero not wanting to take on the challenge, whether it's fear, whether it's anything. That's always a part of the process. Part 2 is supreme ordeal, or initiation. So this is like the big challenge, and that's made up of 3 parts. Part 1 is the mentor. So there's always a guide in the story, crossing the threshold, and then going up against enemies, allies, tests. What is the big challenge? What is the big thing? What is the big linchpin? What is the big drama piece? And then part 3 is the unification transformation. How is the hero transformed by the process? The approach, the ordeal, and the reward are 3 parts of part 3. And then part 4 is the roadblock, the road back, roadblock, and the atonement and the return. And there's always a second ordeal. So there's the first ordeal is in part 2, and the second ordeal is in part 3. And usually in movies, you see the part 3 ordeal is they always make you think, oh, everything's going to be okay now. And then there's that next big thing that comes that's just like, oh, crap, everything's not going to be okay. Everything's going to be really bad. So let me just tell the hero's journey. I'm just going to wing it and riff on my story. So this is a true story. So here it goes. Here's the story. So when I was in my 20s, I actually worked as a sales rep for a printing company. It was a pretty cool job. I got to call on some of the biggest and best advertising agencies in the world, some of the top graphic designers in the world. It was a lot of fun. I worked for a printer that was the most expensive printer for sure in the country and probably in the world. We did really, really high-end work. It was a lot of fun. I had an expense account. My territory was Las Vegas and the Bay Area. Not too shabby to be in a 20-something-year-old kid and have those 2 territories and an expense account. Sorry, Frank Woods. That was the owner of the company, for how I use that expense account sometimes. I apologize for that. I've actually apologized to him on the phone, so he knows about it. Anyway, everything was going good. It was, it was a job that I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed traveling. I really enjoyed what I did, and I was starting to build a little bit of momentum. And then one day, something happened. It was May of 2000. And basically what happened in May of 2000 is the dot-com bubble burst. You see all these companies have been growing and throwing money all over the place on ideas, and very few of them actually made money. And a lot of my print jobs were those types of businesses. Everybody stopped making money. Then something else happened in 2001. It was actually September of 2001. 2 planes flew into the World Trade Center and changed travel. So my 2 territories were the Bay Area and Las Vegas. The Bay Area was hit with the dot-com bust, and Las Vegas was hit with incredible travel decrease because of what happened in 9/11 and what happened after. Nobody was traveling. Everybody was afraid to get on a plane. So my business just completely went to zero. I wasn't making any money. As a matter of fact, it got so bad that I actually didn't have a place to live. I was homeless. I was living on a friend's couch. And I was actually going through a divorce too. So I was it was like the perfect storm of personal tragedy. And then it got worse. I had 3 people die in my family in the same week at the end of 2001. And it was just devastating. And one of them was somebody I was closer to than anybody in this world. And it was devastating, and I didn't know what to do. And something happened. I met a woman who would go on to change my life. And we were both doing personal development classes, trying to get better and trying to be better. And I went into this personal development class. I actually snuck into the class. And I remember the guy that was running the seminar talking to the crowd. And there's probably 600 people in there. I snuck in because I didn't have the money to buy a ticket. And hey, if you got to sneak in, you got to do what you got to do if you're going to improve yourself, right? And I was driven to be a better person. I was tired of the person I was, and I needed to be a better person. So I snuck into that class. He challenged the room. He said the challenge was read chapters 4, 14, and 7 every day for 90 days. And if you do that, it'll change your life. And I remember looking down at the table, and I remember thinking, you know what? I'm going to be the one that does it. If there's only 3 people in this room of 600 that does it, it's going to be me. And sure enough, I did it. Now, the funny thing is, Dina gave me a pep talk, and she said to me, hey, you can't get any lower than you are right now. You have no money. Like you have nothing to lose. You know, basically she's saying you're a loser. You got nothing to lose. She said, why don't you start that internet thing you've been talking about? I said, you know what? You're right. Why don't I? Because what do I have to lose? So I didn't have any money, but I had a woman, I should say. Her name was Andy. She owed me $800. Andy gave me the $800. I owed that same $800 to my friend Amanda. I called Amanda and I said, hey Amanda, do you mind if I pay you in 30 days? And she said, yeah, no problem. And I was like, sweet, I got seed money. So I took that $800 and I bought fast pitch softball bats. And why I bought fast pitch softball bats, I don't know. I just thought that they would sell, and I thought that I was getting them at a cheap price. So I sold those $800 worth of softball bats in a week on eBay, and I made $500. And I'm not kidding you. It was like the heavens parted. I was so excited that I was able to make some money without a boss telling me what to do, without being told when I had to wake up, when I had to show up, when I could pee. It was incredible. So the purpose of the hero's journey story is really to build trust in a hopefully entertaining way, in an engaging way, and to be authentic and be real and tell somebody a story. What I'd like to do now is give you an example of a really well-produced one that we recently did for a client. So here's one that's produced really well. One of the things that you can do in story is to create a faster path to that trust factor is to use multiple locations. So if you watch this video, if you're listening to it, I'd encourage you to watch the video, because what you'll see is you'll see the multiple locations, and you'll see that builds a tremendous amount of trust. You'll also notice that we build in a lot of credibility into the story just with the locations and what's happening in the background. So here it is. Enjoy.
You know, who would have ever thought that a pair of corduroy jeans could lead to a lifelong pursuit of excellence and success? It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but I was never that person that was designed to be the one to teach and help others to be successful. I've run my business all across the world for 26 years, and you know, I'm the kind of guy in the background. I coach the coaches. I'm not the guy out front for most of the time. But helping others really just became a passion. It became something that I wanted to achieve and wanted to do, to give back, to educate others as to how to handle money, how to handle success, and how to handle all these different things that come your way in business and life. And it's not easy for most people to learn that stuff. They don't have a mentor. They don't have someone to teach them those things. But I wasn't born into wealth. I'm like most people. My family, we did a good job. My dad worked hard. He got promotions throughout his career and throughout his life. But we weren't born into money. There was no silver spoon in my world. I know my kids are now born into money, but they appreciate it. They know it. They've been taught the value of money. Trust me on that one. But I sit back and I look at it and I think, here I was, this tall, lanky kid, and we moved around a lot as a family. My dad, he got promoted, as I said, which meant we had to move. And so we had to learn to fit in new areas. And that was tough, luckily I had two brothers and we grew up and we stuck together with each other. But dang, moving all the time, fitting in new areas and trying to find new ways of fitting in. I remember when we moved from Darwin in the Northern Territory in Australia to Adelaide in South Australia, and we went from a warm climate to a cold climate. You had to wear, I don't think I'd ever worn long pants for a long time, but we put on long pants and everyone there was real cool and they all had Levi's 501 jeans, and yeah, that ages me right there, doesn't it? It tells you how old I am when Levi's 501 was cool. But my mom didn't see it that way. She went to Kmart, she bought me corduroy jeans. And to say I didn't fit in, the tall, lanky, new kid wearing these jeans that every time I walked, it made a sound. I don't know if you've ever worn corduroy, but when they brush against each other, it's like, so of course I ended up getting in a fight with some kid and getting in a lot of trouble, and got to the principal's office. Mom was called. Mom came pick me up because I got yelled at a bunch, and took me home, sent me to my room with the wait till your father gets home thing. And I saw it as that me not having money meant that I didn't fit in. Me not having the things that I wanted meant that. And as a 13-year-old boy, that makes sense, I guess. It's sort of a logic for a 13-year-old. And when it turned me to a decision that said, you know what, I'm going to have whatever I want. I'm going to make sure I make enough money to always have everything that I choose to have and be in that position. And now with my wife and our 5 kids, I'm believe that I can provide anything that they ever need and want, not to spoil them in any way, but to bring a great lifestyle to my family. And that decision at age 13 to never go without money led me to, I went and got a newspaper route. I went and did other jobs for people. I went and did whatever I could to make money, to make sure I had whatever I needed. And ever since then, I've gone on to build things. But the next real turning point for me was at age 16. A gentleman by the name of Jim Rohn, E. James Rohn, came and delivered a speech in the Brisbane City Town Hall. It was $595 that day to go see Mr. Rohn. And the reality was it was every single penny I had. I worked hard as a kid. I had my jobs, I went to school, and I made sure I made enough money to have what I needed to do. And I invested all $595 to go see Mr. Rohn. I'm pretty sure I took more notes than any other person in the room. And the reality is, though, you got to be willing to learn. You got to be open to learning. If you don't keep learning and keep growing, then you're basically smart enough to deal with a world that doesn't exist anymore. Mr. Rohn put it even more blunt than that. He said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And he impressed upon me to keep reading and keep learning. And he got me reading a book a week for the rest of my life. And if I hadn't invested every single cent into going to see Mr. Rohn that day, I'm not sure where I would have ended up, but I doubt it would have been at the level of success that I have today. I studied for years from that time onwards. Mr. Rohn got me learning. I kept reading books after books, going and seeing mentors, going to seminars, going to events, as many as I could afford. Anything that I made, I put back into my own education. I started some part-time businesses, but it wasn't until I was 20 when college was done. I'm a trained accountant, and I went out and I had a great job. I was making great money for a 20-year-old, and I quit my job. And I told my parents, and they said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I want to start my own business. I want to do my own thing. I want to be my own boss and be in charge of what I'm doing. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm not sure if your mom's anything like my mom, but I remember saying to me as a kid many times if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Or when she doubted that me going into business for myself was going to be a success, I turned to her and said, well, Mom, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And of course, she didn't speak to me for 2 months, but that's moms for you. But there were so many doubters, especially in those early days, and especially in the early days, I remember like, well, you can't possibly do that. There's no way you're going to achieve that. All of this stuff, and it brought you down. I mean, it got me to a point, but then I used it as fuel. I used it as fire, and I used it as, you know what, you might say I can't, but I'm going to prove to you that I can. And those doubters, I turned it around. I was doing great, doing phenomenally well. The business was expanding internationally. I was still a very young man doing amazing things, early 20s, growing to millions of dollars a year in revenues, and everything was going phenomenally well until one day I got back from a trip and literally everything came crashing down around me. You know, one day I'm on top of the world. Next day it all came crashing down. See, my business partners decided that they needed my money more than I did. They went and spent all the money and left me deep in debt. And to be really blunt with you, that was a pretty dang harrowing experience. Here I was, a grown man, ended up having to move back in with my folks. Yeah, sleeping in my childhood bed. So one day on top of the world, next day, literally feel like I'm in a fetal position, you know, sleeping there. And I felt like a bit of a fraud. Here I was, this so-called super successful business person. Where do I end up? I end up in a position where, you know, basically nothing's working for me. Nothing's going my way. And I remember my dad did a great thing for me that day. My dad literally came in and he came into my bedroom and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Stop being such a complete wimp. Make a list, start at number one, work your way through it all, and away you go." I mean, that's basically all you can do. And if you try and be anything other than that, you're just not going to get there. And so I ended up doing the work. And he was real clever in that what he said was, "Look, you know how to make $1 million, right? You've made $1 million. Yeah, I've made $1 million. Great. So if you've made $1 million, you know how to do it. You haven't forgotten, have you? No? Okay, then go and do it again." So I did. Went and made the money all over again, went out there and did what I needed to do to turn my life back around, paid back everyone that was owed money from what had happened. And from there, you know, I look at what I built and what I went on to do, and it taught me a very simple thing that, you know, once you know what you're doing with money, you can do it over and over again, and you can do it time and time again. And I was running another business, and a lot of my clients were small business owners, and they needed help. A lot of people needed to understand success and needed to understand how wealth worked and how money came and how all of these things happened. And that's really what I knew, and I loved teaching. I loved it. Somehow, what happened at about age 20, and a gentleman who's a very famous author now, Robert Kiyosaki, at age 20, I was asked to go up on stage and teach about business and teach everything that I knew, and how, as a young man, I'd been so successful. I thought, wow, this is phenomenal. Let me go and do this stuff. And today, I built Action Coach, amongst many other companies that I built in my lifetime. An Action Coach now, 9 figures a year, runs in more than 70 countries. We have offices in. We have team members, more than 1,000 franchise partners running these businesses all over the world. Every single day we help more than 18,000 business owners achieve success, and every month we have hundreds of thousands that we work with. And I'm the guy in the background that runs that business and helps those coaches do an amazing job and get the results that they're getting. And you look at where we're at now, and it's one of those things. But if I hadn't have made that list, if I hadn't have sat down and made the list of what I needed to cover and what I needed to do to get it going, then nothing would have happened. You know, making that list is what changed the whole thing. And so I got off my backside. I went back to work. I did what I needed to do to make the money. And, you know, that's what it took.
So, if you enjoyed this and you want to see another episode, do the thing, whatever the thing is. Subscribe, share, like, whatever. You can tell this is the first one. Because I don't even know what to say, except come back next time. I think what I'll go over next time is what does that pattern interrupt look like? How do you do a great pattern interrupt? And how do you grab somebody's attention? And why should you grab somebody's attention? And how to do the first 10 seconds of a video. Because the first 10 seconds of the video is everything. And I broke my own rule, because the first 10 seconds of this one, not very good. One last thing, if you'd like this structure and this worksheet, this part of the worksheet for the hero's journey, I'm happy to share it with you. I wouldn't be a good marketer if I didn't have a link to the next step. So anyway, somewhere on this thing, depending on the format, there's going to be a link if you want to download the worksheet on the hero's journey, along with the graphic that kind of walks you through it. I'd be happy to give it to you. Just click on the link. I'm sure there's going to be an opt-in, and you can opt in for more great free stuff. How about that? Free stuff that makes you money. What a great offer. Talk to you later. Bye. This has been an episode of the Morton Marketing Assassins podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can get more. Oh yeah! Announcer voice!